There is a moment, mid-sentence, someone standing right in front of you, when the name simply isn't there. You know this person. You may have known them for years. You can see their face. You remember the barbecue at their house 3 summers ago, the way they laughed at their own jokes, the kindness they showed you when you needed it. All of that is present, vivid, completely intact. But the name? There is just a blank space where it should be. A door that won't open. You smile, you redirect, you say, "You know who I mean," and somehow you get through it. The conversation moves on. Nobody notices, or at least nobody says anything. But you noticed. And later, driving home, or lying in bed, or standing in the kitchen, it comes back. The name arrives, perfectly clear, completely unhelpful. And with it comes a question you haven't quite said out loud. A question about what that blank space means. About whether it is getting bigger. About what it says about where things are headed. That question is what this video is about. And the answer is not what you have been told. Most people believe that forgetting names faster is one of the first signs that the brain is beginning to slip. That it is an early signal, quiet but unmistakable, that something is eroding. It is an understandable belief. It feels logical. The name wasn't there. That has to mean something is going wrong. But that is not what is actually happening. What is happening is far more specific, far more deliberate, and far more extraordinary than simple decline. Your brain is not losing its grip. It is changing what it chooses to hold, and why it is making that choice is something that will change how you understand your own mind. Welcome back to the Aging Mind. Subscribe before you leave, because what you are about to learn about how your brain is choosing what to keep, and why names are often not on that list, will change how you feel about your own memory for good. Today we are going through 8 things that explain what is actually happening inside your brain when names slip, and what your brain is quietly doing instead. Stay until the end, because the final section, the emotional ledger, is the one that most people over 60 have never been told. It is not about memory loss. It is about what your brain has decided is worth remembering. And it may be the most important thing you hear about your own mind. Number 1. The name is not lost. You are in the shower, 20 minutes after the conversation ended. And without trying, without reaching for it, there it is. The name. Clear as anything. Perfectly intact. Arriving exactly when you no longer need it. Most people assume this means the memory was always there, just slow. That it proves nothing is wrong, but nothing is particularly right either. That is not what is happening. Researchers at the MIT Picower Institute for Learning and Memory spent years studying exactly this, the gap between storage and retrieval in aging brains. What they found didn't point to erasure. It pointed to something far more interesting. The name was never gone. It was stored somewhere your brain couldn't immediately reach, filed through a different pathway than the one you were using in the moment. The retrieval architecture had reorganized. Not collapsed. Reorganized. What this means for you is that the blank space mid-conversation is not a window into damage. It is a window into a filing system that has grown more complex, because the brain behind it has grown more complex. The name was there the whole time. Your brain just needed a quieter moment to find the drawer. What changes after 60 is not how much your brain can hold. What changes is how it decides to reach. Number 2. The filing system has changed. Think about how you remember people from your 20s. You remember their names easily, quickly, but if someone asked you how they made you feel, you might have to pause. The label came first. The feeling, if it came at all, came second. Most people assume this is just how memory works. That names are the anchor and everything else hangs off them. That is not how the older brain files information at all. Researchers at the University of Toronto studying memory encoding across different age groups found something that shifted the way they thought about cognitive aging. Older participants didn't store people the way younger participants did. They filed by feeling first. Not by label. By emotional signature. How someone made them feel, safe, energized, unsettled, warm, became the primary index. The name was secondary. And because it was secondary, it was harder to retrieve on demand. What this means for you is that your brain has not downgraded its relationship with people. It has upgraded it. You are storing what actually matters, the emotional truth of who someone is to you, more accurately than you ever have. The name is a label. What your brain is keeping is the person. But the story gets deeper than that. Number 3. What the brain is actually keeping. Close your eyes for a moment and think of someone you love. Not their name, the feeling. The specific feeling of being in a room with them. The way the air changes. The particular quality of your own ease or joy or comfort in their presence. That feeling? Your brain is holding that with extraordinary precision. Most people assume that because names slip, the broader memory is going with it, that it is all connected, all declining at the same rate. That is not what the evidence shows. Researchers at the Stanford Center on Longevity, including the pioneering psychologist Laura Carstensen, have spent decades documenting what they call the positivity effect, a measurable, consistent pattern in which older adults encode emotionally meaningful experiences more powerfully, not less. The faces of people they love. Moments of beauty. Conversations that mattered. These are being stored with increasing emotional resolution as the decades pass. In one series of studies, older participants recalled emotionally significant material with a fidelity that younger participants simply didn't match. What this means for you is that while the label is getting harder to pull up on demand, the human being behind the label is being held more carefully than ever. Your brain is not forgetting the people who matter to you. It is remembering them in a deeper register. Not by name. By everything that name was ever attached to. What comes next explains why names specifically are the first to go, and it has nothing to do with aging. Number 4. The interference problem. Imagine 2 filing cabinets. One holds 10 years of files. The other holds 60. Now imagine that both cabinets have files labeled with single words, just words, no images, no color, no texture, and you need to find one specific file in under 3 seconds. That is the name retrieval problem in a single image. Most people assume forgetting names means the brain has run out of room, that capacity is shrinking, that the hard drive is full. That is not what is happening. Neurologists at the Johns Hopkins Memory and Alzheimer's Treatment Center have studied something called proactive interference, the way older memories crowd out newer ones when the information involved is structurally similar. Names are the most vulnerable category. They have no sensory anchors. No smell, no color, no emotional weight attached to the label itself. When your brain tries to retrieve one specific name from decades of accumulated names, many of which sound similar, feel similar, attached to similar social contexts, the interference is enormous. Not because storage has failed. Because the database has grown. What this means for you is this: you are not forgetting more than you used to. You are sorting through more than you ever had to before. The brain experiencing name interference at 65 is not a damaged brain. It is a full one. There is a difference, and it matters enormously. But names have a particular vulnerability that goes even deeper than accumulation. Number 5. The name network is uniquely fragile. Tell someone you are a baker and they will remember it. Tell someone your name is Baker and they will forget it within a week. These two things, same word, completely different retention rates, have been studied formally, and the gap between them is remarkable. Most people assume that forgetting a name means something was wrong with their attention in the moment, that they weren't listening carefully enough, weren't trying hard enough to lock it in. That is not where the problem lives. Researchers at the University of Reading investigated exactly this, what became known informally as the Baker/Baker paradox, and what they found revealed something fundamental about how human memory was built. Proper names are the most neurologically arbitrary information a brain can be asked to hold. They carry no sensory data, no emotional context, no logical connection to the person they belong to. The word baker conjures flour, warmth, the smell of bread. It has hooks. The name baker has none. It is a pure label in a brain that was designed, over hundreds of thousands of years, to remember things that feel like something. What this means for you is that name forgetting is not a modern symptom of a declining mind. It is an ancient limitation of a system that was built for a different kind of knowing. Your brain was never perfectly suited for names. What it was built for, emotion, pattern, meaning, relationship, it is doing with extraordinary sophistication. What comes next is where that sophistication becomes undeniable. Number 6. Emotional memory is getting stronger. There is a structure deep in your brain called the amygdala. It does not care about names. It has never cared about names. What it cares about, what it was built to track, is emotional significance. Threat. Love. Loss. Joy. Connection. The things that actually shaped your survival and your life. Most people assume that as the brain ages, everything weakens together, that the whole system dims at roughly the same rate. That is directly contradicted by what neuroscientists have actually found. Researchers at the UC Davis Center for Neuroscience studying the aging amygdala found something that challenged the standard picture of cognitive decline entirely. In older adults, the connection between the amygdala and the hippocampus, the two structures most responsible for emotional memory formation, showed a measurable bias toward emotionally meaningful material that was not present to the same degree in younger brains. The older brain was not just retaining emotional memories. It was prioritizing them at the architectural level. Faces of people loved and lost. Moments of profound kindness. Moments of grief survived. These were being consolidated with more selectivity and more power than at any earlier point in life. What this means for you is that the brain working inside you right now is not a younger brain with parts missing. It is a brain that has made a choice, below the level of your awareness, about what deserves its deepest resources. And what it has chosen is not names. What it has chosen is the emotional record of your life. Number 7. The brain is not declining. It is curating. There is a word that does not get used enough when people talk about what happens to the brain after 60. That word is curation. Most people assume the brain is a passive victim of time, that what is lost randomly, that the process has no logic, no direction, no design. That assumption has been dismantled repeatedly. Researchers at the Harvard Center on the Developing Adult, tracking brain development across entire lifespans, found something that reframes the entire conversation about aging and cognition. The brain does not simply change after 60. It optimizes. Across decades of longitudinal study, older brains consistently showed a deprioritization of low emotional value information, labels, trivia, arbitrary sequences, alongside a strengthening of systems responsible for pattern recognition, emotional judgment, and meaning-making. This is not what deterioration looks like. This is what a system looks like when it has learned, through decades of lived experience, what actually matters. What this means for you is that the brain you are living in right now is making decisions. It is not losing its ability to hold things. It is becoming more selective about what is worth holding. A name that carries no feeling, no story, no weight, your brain has quietly decided that is not where its best resources belong. That is not failure. That is wisdom operating at the neurological level. But there is one more thing. The most important thing. And it is the thing almost no one says out loud. There is something your brain has been building for decades that has no name in common language. It does not appear on memory tests. It does not show up in the metrics doctors use to measure what is working and what isn't. But it is real, and it is vast, and it is yours. Call it the emotional ledger. Every conversation that broke you open a little and then put you back together. Every room where you felt, even briefly, completely known. Every moment of grief you carried further than you thought you could. Every ordinary afternoon that was so quietly beautiful you almost missed it, and didn't. Every person who looked at you in a way that said, "You matter to me." Your brain has been filing all of it. Not by date. Not by name. By weight. By the specific gravity of what it meant to you to be alive in that moment. When a name doesn't come, when you are standing in front of someone you know well and the words simply won't arrive, it is not because your mind is emptying. It is because your mind has spent 60, 70, 80 years filling itself with something else. Something that cannot be retrieved on demand because it was never stored as a label. It was stored as a feeling. As a texture. As the particular quality of light in a memory that still lives in your chest when you think about it. There is a kind of grief in getting older that nobody talks about honestly. The fear that you are disappearing, piece by piece, starting with the small things, the names, the words, the quick retrievals that used to be effortless. That grief is real. It deserves to be named. You are not wrong to feel it. But here is what is also true, and what the science, and perhaps more importantly, the simple truth of your own life, keeps pointing toward. You are not disappearing. You are distilling. What is being lost is the residue. What is being kept is the substance. The people who made you who you are. The moments that proved what you were made of. The loves and the losses that changed the shape of everything that came after. Your brain is not failing to remember what matters. Your brain is remembering almost nothing else. That is not what decline looks like. That is what a life looks like, held, at last, in the mind that lived it. Tell me in the comments, is there a name you have forgotten that still bothers you, even though you can remember exactly how that person made you feel? That gap between the label and the feeling, that distance between the word and the weight of someone, is the thing I want to hear about. You are not alone in carrying it. I read every one. I will see you in the next one.